Hi there, welcome to iTWireTV. Today we're talking with James Smith, CEO of Smith Brothers Media, a full-service digital agency based in Melbourne and passionate about helping to grow and improve great businesses. Thank you so much for your time, James.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me, David.
Excellent. As a starting point, I guess, what does Smith Brothers Media offer its clients? What can you tell me about yourself?
You pretty much summed it up earlier. Full service agency. I think that the key point of difference for us is we are truly a solutions-led business. So strategy is at the heart of what we do. And that's really through multiple different channels, whether that be technology, whether it be growth, marketing, whether it be great design and creative. But we're very fortunate to have all those things under one roof. So we can really make a strategy work throughout all those different areas for a client.
That's fantastic. Are there any clients you could tell us about, particularly those maybe in the technology space?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we have quite a range of different clients, and that comes from the fact that we really do have those different pillars from growth to technology to creative. But to, I suppose, give you just a broad brush of some of them. Some of them people will know of, some of them won't. I'll give some of the household names. Bosch Car Service, we do a lot of growth marketing using digital technology to help track and measure and improve that. Disney, we are fortunate enough to do all the creative artwork for all their movies and all their new release work. Cherry Energy, one of the largest commercial solar companies in Australia, working with them on their digital services from marketing, but also through to using digital technology to help convert and quote some of that work as well. D&R Transport Delight, working from a technology platform through to a bit of marketing and how those two things work together from operations to generating new business. Garden Express, one of Australia's largest online providers of plant supplies, taking them from a catalogue business back in the day through to now Australia's largest digital provider of plant supplies across the whole of Australia. So just give you a bit of a flavour of the different sort of range of clients.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, there's something I'm really curious about with Smith Brothers Media. So I understand, I guess you advocate for the telephone. So I'm keen to know why a digital agency founder is advocating for the old established communication methods like a phone over digital methods. What's the story there, James?
Well, I think it's not so much that we advocate just for phones. Digital is fantastic. Do not get me wrong. We are a digital agency at our heart. But I think one of the things that quite often gets missed is the phone is a very powerful tool. Not only is it a great tool, but it also helps alleviate some of the wastage and the difficulty in understanding which clients are truly valuable. The phone is an incredibly powerful tool because when someone picks up the phone, they're dedicating their time. And quite a lot of businesses these days don't realize the power of that. And we get lost in the noise of digital communication. It's easy to gram, it's easy to send off an email inquiry. So I think phone is incredibly important. One thing not to forget, at the end of the day, like we said at the very beginning, we're passionate about helping businesses grow and improve, whatever the medium. And I think digital can be an amazing supportive tool to all things traditional, and the phone being one of them. And I'll share a little bit more later on with how we do that.
Yeah, fantastic. So that's interesting. So you're saying customers still really prefer to call. Why is that?
I wouldn't say it's always they prefer to call, but the clients who do call are incredibly valuable. I think when you speak to someone on the phone, not only are you able to diagnose their problems, their goals, and what they're trying to achieve very, very quickly through a dynamic conversation, two-way conversation, you're also getting their dedicated time and focus on that problem and listening to how you can help them. So a lot of businesses these days talk about personalization, they talk about tailoring solutions, but how can you do that if you have a rigid structure for inquiry and you have to fit someone into a box and choose an off-the-shelf solution? And I think phone calls are a really good way to be able to help a customer, a client, or a prospect feel that personalized service and how a product or a service can actually tailor to their exact needs and how it can benefit them. So I think phone calls, for that matter, are really important, and that's why they're preferable where possible.
Yeah, right. You've sold me. So I guess what can businesses do then to help them focus on what's valuable and invaluable? What can they do to filter out those communications that are valuable amongst all that noise?
And I'm glad you said communications there, because it is the general communications that come in, and that's the challenge. I mean, if you ask any business owner how many inquiries they get from different sources, we've got email inquiries, we've got contact forms, we've got comments on Facebook and Instagram, we've got direct inbox from Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. We have all these different inbound inquiries. And the problem is it's getting easier and easier for a potential customer to get into contact. Now, the danger is with that easiness of contact becomes less valuable inquiries. So I think one of the most important things, first of all, is that a business understands exactly where all the inquiries are coming from. So not only having a great CRM system, but technology that connects those inquiries to their source. So quite often when I ask a business owner, where are your inquiries coming from? They'll just list off, but they will never be able to give an exact percentage or a number of where leads are coming from in terms of their sources. So first of all, being aware, tracking things, bringing it into your CRM, and creating that data that's rich, not just data for data's sake, but rich, informative data is important.
That's fantastic. So I guess, James, then with everything you've said, why do people often find that phones aren't answered for companies?
Well, there's a few different reasons, but one of the ones that's most important now is we've just gone through 2 years of COVID, and it's still happening. Now, what that's meant for a lot of businesses, particularly small businesses and B2B professional services, is they all start working from home. So all the infrastructure they had that worked in the office, the phone call would ring one place and go to the other, that's all changed. And it has to adapt whether people are in the office or at home. So not only is it a problem to start with, it's become an even bigger problem during COVID, that the systems and the technology that support great answering of phone calls has actually disappeared. So we're finding now that whereas before about 20% of all phone calls went unanswered, that percentage has increased during COVID. So the reason why, COVID is one part of it, but before that, business owners are busy. So when we talk about small organizations, they're busy. They don't always have the ability to take calls at every single moment. Whereas an inquiry or an email, you can answer it when you need to. But this is the challenge. Phone calls are so valuable in that moment. So if businesses can find a way to get hold of and speak to and engage with someone who's making that inbound call and committing their time at that moment, if you can meet them in that place, that inquiry becomes the most valuable inquiries that you're getting into the business.
Yeah, fantastic. So you've really illuminated me on. So I guess fundamentally, you'd say that's why phone calls are so important for business, because you've got somebody's attention right at that time. That would, yeah, fantastic. But why can't then a chatbot or a web form, for example, resolve an issue a customer has?
Look, chatbots, web forms certainly do. And when we talk about support services and things like that, that is a good way to do it, because quite often there is a what if, and there's a flow to be able to diagnose an issue or help someone reach that bit of information they're after. But when we're talking about marketing inquiries and you're talking about providing a service or a product that is personalized or tailored, which, let's be honest, is most businesses, that's where that phone call is so powerful. People also love to buy people. They don't like to buy products. They like to buy brands. They like to buy identities. And there's no better way to do that with a personalized conversation. So that phone call is incredibly important in the right situations. So when I talk about answering phones and some of the stats that we've done some research on across our client base and seeing 20% of phone calls not being answered, those are all inbound inquiries. They're not existing customer service issues. They're not support issues. We're talking about brand new potential customers. Now, they're the valuable ones that we do not want to go missed. And that's where a chatbot, it works, but it doesn't have the same impact in certain businesses as a phone call.
Sure, fantastic. Well, what happens, let's say you engage Smith Brothers Media and you have a great successful media campaign and your call volume increases and the business can't cope. How do we, I guess, what happens with the company there in that situation?
Well, first of all, is understanding why it can't cope. So I think a lot of businesses, they don't know where their calls are coming from. It goes back to that thing I said before, understand where they're coming from. So first of all, is it actually a point where you are reaching peak demand of new inquiries? And when you are, there's lots of great, easy, cost-effective solutions to do that, whether it's technology, whether the inbound calls come into multiple people within the sales team rather than a single point of weakness, or whether you have outsourced solutions that allow the calls to go to call centers to take that information, to have a meaningful conversation with a potential prospect. to warm them up and then turn them into something where it's an outbound phone call as well. So I think there's lots of solutions to it. So one is understanding what is the flow from a call coming in to when it gets to someone who can speak to them, and then finding a solution, whether that be external or internal, to make sure you answer as many calls as possible.
Yeah, fantastic. So what then, I suppose, what can a small business do to make sure that it has all the tools it needs to prioritize phone communications and then make that communication channel work at peak efficiency? What can a small business do in this case?
So there's two parts to those inquiries. So I think all inquiries are important, and phone calls equally so, if not more, in some situations. So first of all, measuring all the inbound inquiries. Now, we have no excuse. Everything is measurable, even phone calls using technology. So first, making sure that we understand where those calls and inquiries are coming from. So technology-wise, Google Webmaster Tools, Google Analytics, we've got so many different abilities to track things totally free when it's a digital inquiry or a booking. But when it's a phone call, people get lost and they think back to the old days when you'd buy 10 phone numbers and put a different phone number on every advert. The same is true, but we can use digital technology to do that. So we can actually use some very smart analytics and tracking to actually marry up a website visitor or a social engagement to a phone call. So there's technology out there. There's a company called Delicon, and they provide that service. It's very, very cost effective. And what it allows us to then do is record those calls, monitor them, but connect it back to that actual website visit, or that social advert, or that Google ad, or whatever it might have been. So we can actually make a connection between that inquiry and the phone call itself. So that's one thing I would say is most important. The tools are available, Delicon phone tracking, set that up with your Google Analytics, and all of a sudden you can actually see, as a business owner or a manager, all the inbound inquiries coming from all your digital advertisements. And also you can actually see the value of those calls, whether they're being answered by your sales team or not. And you can also rank them in terms of monetary value. So all of a sudden you've got this beautiful, rich data that tells you whether your campaigns are performing or not, and whether your sales team are actually performing as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I can really see with what you're saying. I mean, the old saying, what gets measured gets improved. Absolutely. And I can see the, sense of passion you have for the topic. So I suppose you mentioned a couple of tools there, Delicon and Google Analytics. I guess what would be your recommended solution overall for businesses who struggle with this challenge?
So it sounds strange. My solution is not actually a solution, it's awareness. So it's kind of like when we go on a diet, David, right? You don't just go on a diet. It's about weighing yourself and being aware of the problem, or reading the ingredients on something, and you start to change your habits when you're aware of what information is coming in. So that's my one takeaway from anyone listening to this and watching this, is that be aware of what's happening in your business. So first of all, how many of your calls are being answered? That's number one, right? How many calls are being unanswered? How much business is walking out your door before you even realize it? And I can tell you, for businesses who don't monitor, it's going to be around about 20%. So there's a huge improvement right there. Next step is to take that transparency one level further, and then start to connect those calls with value and your marketing that you're doing. So then using something like Delicon, that allows you to really get into the deep depth of understanding what campaigns are working and what's not working, and how valuable those calls are. But first of all, realize what is happening in your business. Measure. So measuring and being aware of that, getting a call report every week from your inbound calls, knowing what percentage are being answered, what percentage are not being answered, is going to be the number one tool that motivates business owners and managers to start creating change, or at least looking for that change and that improvement.
That's fantastic. Now you've sold me. I'm going to use the phone a lot more. But also, I think absolutely, when I think about what you're saying, definitely that I can see that a lot of companies, as you say, they used to just advertise in the yellow pages, do whatever. A lot of companies, I guess, go through the motions of doing what they feel is right. But yes, unless there's a way of measuring the effectiveness, you can't ever improve that. So no, what you say makes so much sense, so much clarity. That's wonderful. I guess, James, do you have any other final thoughts or comments? What else has been on your mind lately?
I think one of the things, yeah, for sure, I'd love to share. I mean, one of the things that's quite often daunting for business owners when they're faced with this challenge, they're being told how to improve things all the time, right? There's always a new idea, or there's a new technology. But what's great about this is it goes back to the basics. And the fundamental basics of growing a business through marketing is measuring two numbers. And that is cost per acquisition of a new client and the client lifetime value. what's really great about this is you've got the potential to decrease your cost per acquisition very, very simply just by answering the phone. Now, it sounds crazy, but it's one of the things that does get missed a lot. So for businesses out there wondering, what should I be doing? Answer the two things. Does this either help decrease my cost per acquisition, or does it help increase my client lifetime value? If it can answer one of those things, it's worth doing. If you can't get a simple answer to those two questions, then it needs a little bit further investigation.
Yeah, fantastic. No, James, that's been wonderful. I appreciate your insights a lot. That's been really informative and interesting. If anybody wanted to reach out to you, how would they get in contact?
Yeah, really simple. Pick up the phone. So no, literally just Google Smith Brothers Media. You'll find us pretty much across all channels, but we welcome a phone call.
Excellent. That's wonderful. Thank you so much, James. Much appreciated.
Thank you, David.